Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Sociastrology. Today I wanted to look a little bit more at Mars and Jupiter in Gemini, and I want to take it through the various houses that this might be happening in your chart based on your rising sign, because this energy is pretty strong and it might help to kind of explain why some things are popping up for you during this time. This is going to hold until early September, so we have about another month with this energy. So I wanted to kind of go through it a bit. I'm working on the monthly for August, but I wanted to put this up ahead of time to just kind of give you a bit of a sense of what might be going on for you right now and why some things might be coming up during this time. So let's dive into it. So with Mars and Jupiter conjunct, a lot of what we're dealing with is we're dealing with a really heightened energy, and this is not only energy in, but also energy out. So things may be demanding a lot more of your energy, but you may also feel like you have more energy. So it's a little bit of a balancing act in terms of where you invest that energy. And there's a lot of questions coming up around that during this time as to what you want to put your energy into, because it's so potent right now. You may also personally be having some trouble sleeping, or just may be having issues with energy levels, because this can also drain energy depending on where it is in your chart. So again, some of the issues, we're dealing with, all of us, is opportunities, drive, luck, fruitful ideas, assertion, aggression, increased communication, news about certain things, and we'll take that through the houses as well. And then a need for balance within certain areas of our lives. So with that kind of overview through, let's take it through the houses and see how this might be coming up for each rising sign. So for Aries Rising, this is going to be occurring in the third house, which really doubles down on the Gemini themes here, because the third house is also Gemini's house. And it's likely to be a really busy time in terms of commerce, communications, news coming through, socializing, things like this. I also have here a note about be careful while commuting, because the third house also rules commutes. And when there's this really heightened energy within a specific area of life, it can kind of, run at cross purposes with other things, figuratively and literally speaking. So be a little careful when it comes to your commute. And also within your neighborhood in general. I mean, no offense, but Aries is a little accident prone as it is. So it might be really significant for you to just kind of try and back off on the energy a little bit, maybe take some miles per hour off of what you usually do and so forth. There may be a lot of opportunities arising within the immediate environment. So maybe your work, but your neighborhood in general. And you may kind of encounter, again, also a market increase in traffic in your area, especially in your neighborhood, or some sort of construction or work or something that's going on in your neighborhood that can kind of just cause things to bottleneck a little bit more. So be careful around those areas as well. You may find yourself much more engaged with media, so following the media a lot more, possibly with, if you're in the US, the presidential campaign is ramping up right now. So you might find yourself engaged with that, or with some other kind of issue that's going on. Also with social media, you may find yourself a lot more interested and investing more energy into those things during this time as well. You may even just be watching more movies and stuff. I mean, the third house basically rules all media. So this could come up in any sort of form with media and communications. You may also find that this causes you to engage in more of those things as well. So especially writing, but communication, exchange in general could come up for you a lot. You might be investing a lot more energy in that. You might find yourself a lot more engaged with that as well throughout this time. And again, there's luck around these areas. Jupiter is in your third house, so it should be able to protect you from a little bit more of the overwhelm of the Mars energy, but in terms of ill effects, let me put it that way, but there will still be a sense of a little bit of overwhelm with it, almost like you're a little bit overstimulated in terms of communication and stuff like that. So a lot of ideas around communication, being assertive in communication is also really, really heightened for you throughout this month as well. You'll probably see yourself with kind of like an increase in socialization and potentially more invitations coming your way. I would welcome that in. I mean, Jupiter's in this house, so it should be really good. It's just that you'll probably find that there's kind of more energy demanded from you within those situations as well. So just something to keep in mind, as well as with siblings. You may be investing more energy into siblings if you have them, if not possibly like cousins and things like this. The kind of adjacent of the family. So the kind of offshoots of the family can be coming up a lot as well. So that's a lot of what you might be dealing with as well. Potentially young people, if you have kids that are in school, you might be engaging with the school a lot more during this time as well. And matters like that should be coming up for you quite a bit. And again, just kind of keep in mind that this can be a little bit draining, but it is rewarding to invest the energy in there. So try and keep things balanced, but also do try to take advantage of the energy basically while you have it in this area. So that is what I have for you, Aries Rising. Let us see. Next we have Taurus Rising. So for you, this is happening in the second house, and there may be a lot more opportunities arising for collecting resources. So potential opportunities for side gigs, little freelance things, little tasks that you can do for extra resources, as well as potentially just like little things popping up that you didn't realize would be coming in terms of resources and money. So if you've been wanting to do something, but you felt like you haven't had the resources, those should start flowing to you with a lot of regularity and a lot less resistance than usual. And that'll also actually kind of continue for you throughout the coming year. There should be a lot of opportunities around resources for you. It's just that it's really in hyperdrive, essentially, with Mars also in Gemini. Now, again, resources may also be demanded quite a bit though. So I would definitely put some thought into any major purchases that you have coming up during this time, because this is all about maintaining balance. These planets are really out of balance. There's a way to utilize that, but it is just really important to kind of keep that in mind, that there is something with regard to your resources, usually in a favorable way, that's out of balance, and to just try and keep that in mind and not go too wild with it. So you might be making a lot more little purchases that you don't quite usually make. There may be things coming up where you just kind of need to collect resources. If you started a new hobby, if you're like rock climbing or whatever, then you would be like spending money on harnesses and shoes and memberships and so forth, you know. So that kind of thing coming up with resources where it's for a good reason, but you might want to put a little bit more time and thought into each of these purchases than you might usually do, because there's probably going to be several things coming up during this time that you're going to have to be investing in. So try not to think, oh, well, this will be a one-off thing this week, so I'm not too worried about it. Try and keep in mind that there might be multiple things that pop up during this time that you're going to be investing in. So again, try and keep the balance between those things. It's probably also a better time to focus on bringing in money than spending money. Again, there's this kind of energy of things are out of balance, but you can utilize that out of balance in your favor. So for instance, in, you know, a way of bringing in a lot more than you're spending and then having that saved for later on. This whole time, again, with Jupiter in your second house is excellent. It's really good for your resources. And I would definitely recommend putting some of that away, just for the sake of it, just because that can kind of increase freedom of options and so forth later down the line as well. If you can work during this time, that would be wise. So even if you can take on overtime or if you can take on extra tasks and stuff, you're probably going to have a lot more energy toward those things anyway. So you could wind up overcommitting, but I would worry a little bit less about that during this time, just because there's so much energy here to take advantage of. But yeah, so that is most of what I have for you, Taurus. I think that's pretty much what we needed to discuss. Yeah. So moving on to Gemini Rising. So for Gemini Rising, this is happening in your first house. Hello, fellow Gemini Rising. I don't know if you've noticed, but this has been a really busy time, and there's been a lot of things kind of demanding the attention and everything, a lot of things coming in, as well as therefore a lot of energy that you're having to put out there. Again, try to really maintain your balance overall with everything. Try and get rest when you can, because this is probably, especially since you have Gemini Rising, this is probably coming up as a lot of restlessness. So really try and block off certain time, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, if you're able to, unlike me, to, easily fall asleep at least without just having some, weird, stupid media on that can kind of, pull your attention and so forth. Try to do that without those things so that you can just rest during those times. This is a major supercharging point, but there should also be, again, a lot of opportunities arising during this time with Jupiter in your sign. It's just that all of it's getting really, really hypercharged throughout this period, throughout until September here. So there's a lot of energy, but a lot of channels to funnel that energy into. And there's probably a lot more maybe charisma or energy coming into your personality than usual as well. So good to take advantage of that. If you can plan any sort of meetings or speeches or whatnot that you have to do during this time, would be a really good time to do that, because you'll have the energy for it. Again, you may feel kind of overwhelmed at times. So when you do, take that as a cue to take a step back, to slow down, to only focus on the next step, and to try and take yourself a little bit out of the big picture, because you will probably tend to like to focus on details and so forth, but with Jupiter in Gemini, there's going to be a really big picture perspective that's injected basically into your whole life. And so it can get a little overwhelming when you're thinking about, I have literally 300 tasks to do on creating some big picture idea as something that is of material form within my life. If you're trying to build something up, for instance, if there's a project that you're working on, or if you're working on your degree or something, try not to focus on classes that you're not taking yet, so try and break these things up into little tasks. Focus just, if you're in school, focus just on your next test, things like that. So try to take things piece by piece. And also do try and kind of keep in mind that there's this quote that I can never find it in exactly the form that I heard it once, and now it's just this kind of concept in my mind, so I never really know how to put it, but it's you are more likely to get in trouble for the things that you do say than the things that you don't say. So if you're on the fence about whether you really want to kind of assert yourself in a specific way or something, if you're kind of not sure, I would back off of it a little bit rather than go too hard, because that's, again, the lack of balance in this can have you leaning a little bit too hard in general. So if you, even in your speech, try to potentially slow down. That way you can think things out and you don't potentially put your foot in your mouth because you're feeling good and you're just just putting your energy out there, So this could also be, again, it should be an excellent time where you feel really good and you can get things done. And there's a feeling of new energy and possibility. So I would really utilize that. I mean, it's a really wonderful transit to have, but there's just, it's just that it could be a little bit draining, and then you could hit little walls along the way where you're just really tired and kind of out of it. And when you do, really take that as a kind of guidance to slow down, to take some rest and so forth. So you should also be pretty well protected during this time with Jupiter in your rising sign. So if little issues arise, try not to let them take you, too far off of your balance. Try not to overemphasize little problems and get stressed out about them, because it's going to be a waste of your time and like a little bit of an energy leak, essentially, if you kind of make a mountain out of a molehill, essentially. So again, there's a forcefulness to the personality during this time. So that's just also something to keep in mind, is that if you are usually kind of on the borderline of being a little bit too assertive, this could really push you beyond that line. So again, reel it back a little bit when you're not quite sure how you're coming across, and that should really help you. But otherwise, this should be, one of the more beautiful times over the course of some coming years. So I would really take advantage of it and utilize the energy that it's bringing to you. So that is what I have for you, Gemini Rising. Moving on now to Cancer Rising. For you, this is occurring in your 12th house. So there may be kind of a marked increase in your dream activity, as well as these kind of spiritual hits, like insights out of the blue. Psychological breakthroughs could be occurring during this time. You may feel, if you're usually a little bit psychologically down, leaning a little bit more low energy than high energy, this could kind of mitigate that for you a bit. You might feel a little bit more pleasant and more happy, and like there's more possibility, even if it's not taking material form within your life. This should be a sensation that's coming in internally, that, again, you may not see it in physical form yet, but it's something that you can kind of feel, essentially. And there may be something sometimes that's a little bit irritating, like there's kind of an energy that it's cueing, but you don't really understand the purpose of it. So again, those kind of like good feelings, try not to let the fact that you're not quite sure necessarily where to invest those upset you. I would recommend investing that just in yourself. If you're feeling good, just lean into feeling good for you. Like you don't need to channel it into anything. That's coming through for you to use, basically, for you to just feel. Now, again, because the fact that this is happening in the 12th house for you, if you were to really try and invest this energy into things that are extroverting, essentially extroverting activities, you could wind up feeling your energy kind of dissipating. And because things that are in the 12th house can kind of mysteriously dissipate a little bit. And so that's almost a little bit more of a suggestion not to try and put it into form, rather than even to just not worry about trying to put it into form, because of the fact that it's almost like the energy could get lost a little bit if you're trying to extrovert it. And so I would try and kind of hold this energy that you're feeling internally and plant seeds within you. So, let ideas percolate, basically. Let the energy percolate. Focus on why you're feeling good and how that's basically coming through, because there may be external activities. For instance, if you're hanging out with certain people and you're starting to feel really good when you're around them, there's like a spiritual psychological insight that's coming through here that's really beneficial, and it could help you for also when this transit isn't occurring, to kind of be able to look back on this period and have more of an internal sense of, yes, this makes me feel good and that doesn't make me feel so great. So this is probably what I should be focusing on more in general anyway, throughout your life. So you should have pretty good hunches during this time, and that's what I'm kind of wanting for you to kind of lean in on, if you're able. When it comes to other people, when it comes to certain environments or places or whatnot, your kind of instincts are going to be really good during this time. And so you should utilize that in order to know that also for future reference, essentially. And you may also find that you're able to kind of derive energy from meditation and spiritual practices that maybe don't usually come through in that way of heightening your energy. So if you usually find meditation kind of boring or whatnot, you may find yourself actually really enjoying that and getting a lot of energy out of that during this time as well. But yeah, that is what I have for you, Cancer, with this transit going through your 12th house. So moving on to the 11th house, Leo Rising. So we have this in a really wonderful house here. It's like just generally a good feels kind of house with the 11th house. So you should find a lot more important and really good opportunities arriving in your connections with others, especially connections with others that are somehow related to your public standing. So groups that you belong to, people that you work with, you know, just people kind of in your general colleague, you know, oriented environment there. It would be really good to, if any opportunities arrive for socializing and especially networking in particular, this would be a really, really good time to do that, because even if you're usually, for instance, kind of introverted, then, I mean, you're Leo rising, so maybe not, but, you know, if by chance you are, you should be able to feel more energized from networking than usual. And I would definitely try and channel this into like making other people feel really good about themselves. There can be some really excellent opportunities that come through with that as well. And you shouldn't feel as drained from extroverting as you usually do. And again, it's going to open you up to some really important possibilities and kind of opportunities that are basically within the general adjacent area for you and your public life, your public standing, basically. So also engaging with social media can open doors as well. This is another, if you think of it as kind of networking when you're doing it, that should also really help with kind of putting your best face forward within those groups and everything, really focusing on how you're coming across. You should be coming across with a lot of charisma. And so leaning into that would bring you likely a lot of luck, which you should be feeling not only this month with Mars and Jupiter in your 11th, but also throughout this year with Jupiter remaining in your 11th there. There's going to be a lot of really great possibilities for you for networking, so I'd lean into it a lot. You should be able to market yourself really effectively during this time, and again, have a lot more energy toward that. So for instance, if those kinds of things are usually not of a whole lot of interest to you and you don't feel like you're great at marketing yourself, this should give you the kind of impetus to be able to do that during this time as well. And that would be something to lean into. And yeah, I mean, that's most of what I have for you. It's all about your public standing and your social life, essentially around that, to open doors for you throughout this coming year, and having a lot more energy toward that during this month. So yeah, that's what I have for you, Leo Rising. So moving on to the 10th house for Virgo Rising, we have a lot of increased activity in the kind of public sphere around your career and public standing. You may find that work is a little bit less draining unless you kind of let it get out of balance. So if you can, try to just check in and see if you feel like you're getting toward a wall, then pull back a bit, but you should have increased energy to invest in these areas. So lean into it. When you feel like you're getting close to a point of being drained, then pull your energy back so that it doesn't get too drained, because it's really all about balance with this. Take advantage of the lack of balance and the fact that there's a lot of energy here, but also don't let it get too out of hand to where it starts to really drain you, and then you wind up having to take some days kind of out of that. So there's potential for a lot of really great career opportunities, and kind of putting yourself out there is really favored with this. This is also going to continue through the next year with Jupiter staying in your 10th house, but the special point about this month is that you're going to have a lot more energy to invest in it. So when you do get those kind of points of inspiration, then really follow those, because those are leading you toward better opportunities, is basically why they're coming up this month. And again, try not to be overly aggressive in areas related to work or that that affect your public standing, but do put yourself out there. So try to really focus on assertion that doesn't at all impact the ability for others to feel good about themselves as well in the work environment. So definitely try not to ladder climb in a way that's going to be stepping on other people, because that can really be then seen as a little over aggressive. And try to definitely not be kind of bombastic within the work environment, but you can put yourself out there a lot more during this time and get a lot of more of what you want. Just again, watch that line basically for balance. And for you, one thing you may encounter is potentially a bombastic kind of boastful person within the career. I would try to kind of dodge and, sidestep that energy a bit with charisma. Just being nice, kill them with kindness, essentially. And then you should basically be able to not have that affect you in a negative way. So whenever you encounter Mars, lean into Jupiter, lean into goodwill, and, everything's great, everything's fine, we're all doing good, just don't lean into the Mars side of that if you encounter a kind of Mars type energy that's a little aggressive. And that should do you really good. But basically, this should be a really good time for your career and getting a lot of things done, as well as for your public standing otherwise. And that'll feed into this whole year where you have Jupiter in your 10th house, which is a really wonderful placement. So that is what I have for you, Virgo Rising. So for Libra Rising, this is going to be in your 9th house. And this could bring up opportunities or a kind of sense of inspiration for travel, as well as kind of educational opportunities, or an interest in maybe a new type of philosophy that you're interested in reading about or learning about, leaning into, or just a stronger drive to engage with certain types of philosophies that you already are really interested in. So that should be coming up a lot during this time as well. Spending time learning, because you're going to really want to learn during this time, as well as teaching. So you're going to want to ingest a lot of information and knowledge and wisdom, but you should also be sure to share that with others during this time as well, because that's really well favored during this time. Again, reading would be a really wonderful way to kind of utilize this really curious energy that you have here. And you may also get some kind of spiritual insights during this time. Again, I would be kind of bouncing those ideas, any ideas that you have, I would be bouncing them off of others and get kind of input from others as well. And then kind of, just take it into consideration and maybe meld some of that into your own worldview if you are enjoying basically what you're encountering. And it's a really good time for basically dialogue around broad ideas, like philosophical ideas, political ideas, things like this, to just try and, again, kind of strengthen or broaden your worldview during this time. So yeah, that is pretty much what I have for Libra Rising in the 9th house. This is a really lovely placement. It is Jupiter's kind of natural placement to be in this area. And so yeah, it should be really lovely for broadening your horizons and learning and engaging with ideas, big ideas during this time, as well as travel. You should also be really pretty protected while traveling, but if you are, for instance, driving or whatnot, I would let off of the accelerator a lot, because you'll probably have a bit of a lead foot during this time as well. So yeah, that's what I have for you, Libra Rising. Now moving on to Scorpio Rising. This is going to be in your 8th house. So psychological issues may demand some attention during this time. There could also be a lot of questions and issues around resources, shared resources, contracts, things that you are co-signing with, areas where you have, for instance, shared accounts or like collective money. If you need to ask for resources from people, this is a good time to do so. You should be able to get some pretty positive answers around that. And again, questions around contract. So should you get involved in contracts? Should you co-sign with things? I think that the overall energy is a lot better during this time around those issues than it is at all negative. But do, again, when you are feeling kind of these issues come up, take a step back and again, really consider it, just so that you're kind of bringing the energy back into balance. You're really considering something, because you're going to have time here. These aren't things where, you know, if you're getting rushed to, you know, sign a contract, or if someone, for instance, is doing some like pressure sales tactic on you, I would kind of step away from that energy there, because that's going to be a lot more of the Mars energy coming into this rather than just the Jupiter energy. So again, take a big picture look at anything that is coming up for you where you're a little bit on the fence, and you're probably also then going to be a little bit nervous because this is coming through the 8th house. So look out for those signs to then take a step back and take some more time to consider. You may strangely hear more about the like passing of people, and you may kind of focus on this a little bit more yourself. These kinds of ideas of, you know, the impermanence of life and things like this, and those kind of melding into like some probably psychological topics that are popping up around this time, where you're just kind of, you have a lot of energy to focus on those things. And so you might be able to utilize this time, if you are thinking about those things, to kind of come to better terms with some of those topics that are coming up during this time. And with Jupiter in this house for the coming year, it should be quite beneficial to you to lean into that and to just kind of, you know, if you're getting worried about anything with regard to that, I wouldn't be worried, because again, Jupiter protects. So try not to fear any of those concepts, and utilize the fact that Jupiter especially is here to lean in on those topics and give them more consideration than maybe you usually do. Now, there may also be kind of strange impulses and demands that are coming up for you during this time as well. You know, some of those things you're just going to have to engage with and deal with. But again, if there's a fear response coming up, I wouldn't worry so much, but I would take it as a kind of a sign to kind of maybe back off of something a little bit, to take a little bit of space from something if there's some weird demands coming up on you during this time. And there could be also, throughout this month, energy that you put into things that just kind of, there's a level of frustration involved. So maybe there's a goal that you have in mind and you're kind of really driving at it, but for some reason it just kind of keeps getting frustrated. Again, if you're able to, I would kind of take a step back and maybe take a different perspective on it, lean into the Jupiter, try and get a broad view on it rather than continually trying to drive at it. If you're able to, and maybe that can kind of loosen up the energy and help you to find just a different way to go about it so that it's less frustrating. If that makes sense and it's something that comes up, I'm hoping that that might be a way to kind of get around that. There could also be for you like energy leaks, like little weird energy leaks that you find coming up. So like even decreased energy, similar to how it would play out in the 12th house. You may just be feeling a little bit more drained during this time. It may be really great to lean into rest during this time and time alone. With this taking place in the 8th house, you may find that you're more productive essentially when you're working on your own rather than trying to extrovert this energy a bunch. You'll probably feel that that's a little bit more draining even than usual. There may also be some strange kind of grief that arises during this time. It would be really good to just kind of look that straight in the eye and just kind of deal with it during this time because Jupiter's around. If you want to wait until this month is over when Mars moves on and then utilize just Jupiter in this house to do that, that's perfectly fine too. But it'll probably be begging to be addressed during this month. I wouldn't say that there's anything wrong with saying, yeah, okay, I'll deal with that in a month and then wait for Mars to move on before you do that. But it may just be something that's arising that's kind of demanding some engagement from you. Also, one way I'm hoping this won't present itself, but it would be with potentially manipulative or potentially unwell people coming up in a way that is a little bit weird and maybe a little bit aggressive. So I would, for instance, if there's certain areas that you know that maybe people who are a little bit troubled tend to kind of congregate, I would maybe, go around that area and just try to avoid those areas during this time, because you could have like a weird encounter with someone who, because of this kind of really increased energy, they might be feeling extra aggressive. And because this is coming to you through your 8th house, then it could come through them to you in a pretty unsettling way. So I would just try to avoid anywhere that you know that could come up, and then maybe try and take a little bit more precautions with yourself when you're in any sort of environment where you could potentially encounter something like that. It's just kind of a little bit of a warning with it. But yeah, that's what I have for you, Scorpio, in the 8th house. Let's move on to Sagittarius Rising. In the 7th house, this is going to be affecting your relationships with other people. People may be demanding a lot more of your energy, and your relationships may be demanding more engagement. So you probably will spend this time extroverting a lot, dealing with a lot more people, and a lot more of their concerns arising for you to deal with. Again, try not to, with this, try to keep in mind the balance. Try not to over-invest your energy into other people and their demands on you during this time, because this could wind up being a little bit of an energy leak for you. Try to save some of the energy for you as well. You may be spending a lot more time with others, and issues of contracts could also arise during this time. So there may be a contract that you're needing to sign. Again, I would lean into taking a little bit of time to consider these things, because there may be, like, if you can wait until next month to sign a contract, I would, because you're going to want for the Mars energy to actually move on from here. And when you have Jupiter in your 7th, then contracts should go pretty well. So if contracts come up and you have to sign them, take a step back, take a little bit of time. But if you can push it off for a month, I would. There could also be someone that you deal with that's becoming a little bit boastful or bombastic, and possibly even someone coming through as rather hostile. This would probably come to you directly rather than indirectly. So this won't be something that'll happen behind the scenes. It'll be something that you see, and it'll be someone that you would expect it from. So just try and keep that in mind. Again, with this, because you're Sagittarius rising, it should be pretty easy for you to kind of lean in on the Jupiter side of this. Again, anyone that comes at you in a Mars way, try to parry them with a Jupiter kind of response. So kill them with kindness, really good vibes, and kind, almost ingratiating responses to any sort of Mars energy should kind of dissipate it a little bit. It should lean that energy hopefully also more toward the Jupiter side of this, if you can just not respond to Mars with Mars, essentially is what I'm hoping that you're able to get from that. Is if you feel Mars coming at you, try not to respond with Mars. Try to lean into the Jupiter kind of good-natured, goodwill aspect that is available to you here. So there's probably going to be a major demand on you to extrovert a lot during this time, because you're going to be spending a lot more time around people likely. And so if you are naturally extroverted, this should give you a lot of energy, but do watch out for when you start to feel your energy possibly waning. Take a step back at that point rather than taking a step back later, because if you start to get drained, then that can kind of leave you a little bit more open to expressing a little bit more of that pure Mars energy that we really want to blend with Jupiter. And when we encounter the Mars on its own, really respond full on with Jupiter here. You may also deal with a lot of restlessness from others. So not necessarily your restlessness, but people who are acting pretty restless. So I would try to assuage the concerns of people, just try and be there for people, and try not to get frustrated or impatient with people, because this can also come through as impatience. And the ruler of your ascendant is conjunct to Mars during this time, so this could come out with you as an impatience or frustration with people who are acting restless toward you. So that's a lot of what I have for you, Sagittarius. Really lean into charisma and goodwill and so forth, and things should be going well. And then if you can push off any contracts during this month until after, I want to say, I think it's the 5th of September when Mars will move on out of this house of yours, though it'll be moving into your 8th house, which also has some to do with contracts. I would do that, and also take that time to really consider whether the contract is the best for you. So that's what I have for you, Sagittarius Rising. Now moving on to Capricorn Rising. This is going to be taking place in your 6th house, and this could bring up for you, therefore, a lot more work and tasks to be done. And so you may be feeling a little bit overwhelmed with just how much stuff that you're having to do, essentially, during this time. And there may be even just like house things that come up, like, you know, just having to like maybe fix things around the house, or just having to deal with neighbors, deal with work colleagues. They might be texting you when you're at home, you know, things like this. And it's probably going to get a little bit annoying. So when you can, try to block out certain times of your day, if you're at all able to do this, to just put your phone on don't disturb and don't engage basically with any tasks. Make me time with this, because there's an imbalance toward a lot of busy work. So anything that you can do to balance that out with making sure that you're taking like basically self-care time, where you're trying to do as little as possible, that's kind of the way to, I think, deal with this in a really healthy way. You may find that you have a lot more attention to detail, and that you have a lot more energy for dealing with detail-oriented tasks. So that should be going over well for you right now. Try not to rush, though, over details. Try to take them all in their stride. And again, be careful around just your energy levels in general, because you'll probably feel really motivated to do a lot of things. You might wind up overcommitting to doing different tasks and so forth. So try to be careful around that, and then not overestimating the amount of energy that you're going to have. Restlessness is probably going to come up for you throughout this time. It'll probably be something that comes up, you know, maybe each day for a period of time, every other day. It's going to be a thing that's going to be coming up for you throughout this time. So just try and keep that in mind. And then you may also find that there are people in your environment that need to be taken care of, where their caretaking needs are also putting a lot of demands on you. So again, with all of this, the most important thing for you to do to balance this out is basically just take really specific periods of time and say, no, this is me time, and that's all I'm doing. Nothing else is going to demand my energy during this time. But otherwise, it should be a super, super productive period of time for you. And you should have a lot more energy for productive activities. It's just a matter of keeping in check just how much energy you're funneling into that. So that's what I have for you, Capricorn Rising. Now, moving on to Aquarius Rising. This is going to be occurring in your 5th house. And so you'll probably find yourself wanting to have a lot more fun, to go out, be seen. Nightlife may have a really strong pull on you during this time, or just, even, going out and engaging in games or sports or whatever with friends. You'll feel a lot more probably also creative urges during this time. So anything that you are wanting to create, to put into form, so be it, again, like music, or if you are into crafts, or if you're into some sort of project that you're working on, any sort of creative endeavors, you're going to feel a lot of energy and a lot of inspiration to do that. This is really supercharging your inspiration, essentially. And so really try to utilize that, but take advantage of that while you can, but try not to burn the candle at both ends with these 2 in your 5th house, because it's like you really want to do and a lot of different things, and you're really excited about all of them, and so this may wind up then affecting your sleep, so try to take a bit of rest when you can. You may also find that children are a little bit more enjoyable, but also a little bit more demanding. So, if you have to be around children, I would really lean into it. All the silliness and stuff like that, you're going to really enjoy that a lot more. Sports and gambling can come up with this a lot as well. If you're gambling or engaging with sports, do be careful because of the lack of balance with this. You may be feeling like, oh man, I'm on a roll, if you're at like a casino or something like this, and you may just wind up really overdoing it. So really try to set those limits ahead of time. And also, if you're engaging in sports, Jupiter is generally relatively protective, but again, because of the lack of balance, you could do things like you're running really fast and then you want to, turn it up another notch, and then you're going too fast and you wind up, not noticing something, running into it, and maybe potentially getting an injury or something like that. So be careful about doing fun things too out of balance, essentially. There may also be a bit of more of a demand on family resources. So the resources of the home, or, if you have family activities or whatnot, those could wind up demanding a lot of energy and a lot of resources as well. If you, for instance, if you're taking like a family vacation during this time, you may wind up putting a lot more resources into it than you necessarily thought that you were going to. So again, try to keep those things in balance, and try to set limits ahead of time with this in your 5th house, because when you're in the moment, the thing with these 2 in the 5th house is you're not going to want to set those limits. And so that's why it's important to have those hard boundaries ahead of time. Also, again, if you're engaging in nightlife, if you're going out at night and you're drinking or engaging in any sort of substances or anything like that, again, there's a tendency to overdo it. So be careful and take care of yourself during those times. So yeah, that's what I have for you, Aquarius Rising. It should be a super fun time, but just keep in mind to set those limits and balance things out. Try not to burn the candle at both ends every day. I'm sure you're going to do that on some days, and that's okay, but just try and get those little breaks, those little limits that you're setting for yourself, to make sure that your own physical energy reserves aren't getting too drained. And you should be super great during this time. So moving on now to Pisces Rising, last but not least. This is going to be occurring in your 4th house. So there's probably going to be a lot going on around the home and the family, demanding a lot more of your energy during this time. There's probably going to be a lot of activities going on around the home. You may have a lot more traffic around the home, a lot more people in your house. If you live with other people, they'll probably be bringing, you know, all their people into the home quite a bit more and everything. So if you need to set limits, try to maybe enjoy your own part of the home, your own room or whatnot, to just give yourself a little bit of time to introvert, especially because you're Pisces rising, you probably lean that way anyway. And because you can also be ingratiating, you could be a little bit too good of a host within your home essentially, and wind up giving a lot more energy than you have to people who are visiting, and also to your family members themselves. So try and set limits with family. You may be also doing with Mars and Jupiter in the 4th, you may be engaging in like home improvements. So you may be doing work on the home, and that would be a really wonderful way to channel this energy. But again, try to remember to set certain limits ahead of time. So if you have a specific budget for a given project that you're doing on the home, or if you have a specific budget, if you're, for instance, looking for a new apartment or looking for a house to buy or something, be really super aware of those limits, because this can push you beyond your limits when it comes to anything to do with the home. So try and keep that in mind. If you're looking for a home, you're probably going to find one, but keep in mind the budgetary limits in particular. And then also even your limits in terms of like, well, I didn't really want to be, more than 10 miles from work, but this place is so great. And, it's like 20 miles from work, but I can probably make it work. I would really set those limits and stick to them, because you're going to feel these kind of urges come up where in the moment they're going to be a little bit difficult to say no to. So really stick to the boundaries that you've already set. You may also find it a little bit more difficult to find restfulness within the home. So again, certain areas of the home need to, at least for certain times of day, be for you only. And you're going to need to have time to recharge your batteries alone and to not feel bad about that during this time. So really try and set those limits with home and family, and then all the people that they may be bringing into your home during this time as well. So yeah, that's what I have for you, Pisces rising. It should be a really beautiful time within the home and within the family. A lot of really great energy. It's just always keeping in mind to keep the balance with this transit to your 4th house here. So yeah, that is what I have for everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do hit the thumbs up button. That helps out my channel a lot to grow. And thank you so much for those of you who have been giving thumbs up, who have been subscribing and everything. I'm really kind of blown away with the growth of this channel, and it means just so much to me. I really can't overstate that. So thank you so much for all of your support, and do let me know how this is playing out for you. We're already in this energy a bit, so you should be feeling some of this. I kind of wanted to explain a little bit of what you're probably already feeling, and then give a little bit of guidance on how to deal with it going forward. So yeah, do please let me know what's your rising sign and how this is playing out for you, because I love to hear those stories and see, maybe even what areas I may have overlooked in terms of what planets even that it might be transiting in your chart as well. So yeah, other than that, yeah, please stick around by subscribing. And I do a lot of videos like this where it's these kind of broader transits that we're having. I do the monthly horoscopes, and then I do a lot of political and geopolitical astrology as well. So if that's of interest to you, then please do stick around by subscribing. I would love to see you for future videos. And yeah, I hope you have an absolutely beautiful time with this transit, and I will see you soon. Bye.